DALiM Tips and Tricks webinar. This month we decided what we'll do is do a duo recap. I know some of you couldn't make it to the meeting. Some of you maybe had to step out during sessions. So I kind of grabbed a bit of the information of some of the more interesting sessions or things I actually had presentations that I could show to y'all. And going to kind of go over those. Probably won't be too long of a webinar today, but I was hoping we could kind of cover that, give everybody a taste of what happened at Duo and what some of the new features are that are coming out in the products. So I think I've told most of y'all before, I really hate doing PowerPoint presentations or keynote presentations. I usually like demoing live, but really it's the only way to kind of present this information. So this will be mostly a keynote, but I will kind of jump into product or website in a couple of different places. First of all, for those of you who have been on our webinars before, in GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, you'll see in the top left, you should be able to zoom however you need to, make sure you can see my screen properly. And you'll also see a Q&A panel on the webinar, on the GoToWebinar control panel. If you could type in any questions you have there, we'll try to answer those at the end of the session. I'll also try to pay attention during the session in case it's relevant to actually what I'm covering. So anything you could just type in there, we'll cover those at the end. So first of all, so US Duo, again, this year was held back in New Orleans by popular vote from the members. It was April 16th, 17th, and we had kind of a rainy week, but still everybody had a great time. It was a really good event again. One of the kind of mainstays of the Duo events has been the tips and tricks. Typically, Mike Moscato has done most of them. They've now added a couple of separate sessions because the sessions tend to be so popular. So Mike did a tips and tricks session, so did Ryan from IOI, and Scott Tully from an APC did one as well this year. Ryan's done them before. I think this was Scotty's first time doing one. So things that Mike Moscato covered, I thought a couple of them would be interesting to bring up and note for this meeting. One of them, what he covered is merging pre-flight reports from single-page files. So he went over a workflow where he showed how if you submit single-page files to a workflow, and maybe at the end you're combining those and making a multi-page PDF, you can get a report from those as one report for all the pages by using some features. I'm not going to go into details on some of this. I just kind of wanted to cover with some no screen. Oh, sorry, I'm being told that my screen is not being shared. So if you bear with me, I'm going to restart that, and hopefully y'all should see my screen now. Sorry about that. And okay, and let me get back to the beginning of the presentation here. Sorry about that, everybody. Kind of got rusty by not doing one in a month. So I'm not going to go over in detail with all these work because that would take a whole session. If anybody finds some of this stuff interesting, we could do a separate webinar on it, or if you contact us, Mike can share his notes and share the workflows with you as well. Another interesting thing Mike showed is he used PDF-TK in the background, a twist, to do replacing of PDFs inside of a file, which wound up useful the way he went through the whole thing and showing how it could be used for a digital edition workflow where maybe you're swapping just a couple of pages in ES, and instead of having to reprocess or recreate the whole digital edition file, ES could send which pages were modified to Twist. Twist would pick up a stashed file and only swap out the pages that needed to be, which saved a lot of processing time in ES for those of you who do digital edition type workflows or just any kind of stitching workflows where you're creating multi-page PDFs at different points in the workflow or maybe with slight changes in them. So it was a pretty useful demonstration. One thing he covered that I'm going to just show a screenshot of in a little bit is the proper use of the function OR in ES 4.5. There were some changes in how the logic of a workflow works, and there's an important thing to note on this. Then he also covered user actions, how to create user actions. I think we did a webinar on some of these before, but a nice useful demonstration on that. The thing I wanted to point out on the OR function is when you look at a workflow like what we have here with the OR function, it looks like it would work fine. Like there wouldn't be any issues with it. Basically, the file's making a decision on which way it's going to go after the preview generation based on some metadata. It's either going to go towards the waiting for approval, or maybe it takes the document step route first and then goes up. The problem is that the way the logic works in ES, when it bypasses a step, so the two red links you see there are actually bypassed if a certain metadata is being met. If it tries to go if it doesn't go the top route and wants to go down to the document step, what it'll actually do is cause a cancel of the next step, which is the OR. So when the file goes down to the document step, it'll just stay there because the OR has been canceled and won't continue in the workflow. So if you have to have logic like this, the best method to address it is to actually put a node tool, which I should have had the screenshot for, but I missed in here. Just put a node tool between the preview generation and the OR, so the cancel will actually cancel the node tool, and the OR will still be valid for the document step coming up. It's kind of a gotcha on some of this, and it's caused Mike and I one time a little bit of time troubleshooting and try to find out what was going on with it. The user action stuff, Mike explained how basically the target and context works. So quick explanation of that is just showing basically that the context is which file are you going to send to the workflow. So to explain user actions real quickly, it's basically a way to select a file and send it to an ES workflow that could do something. So it could send it to Twist for file transformation or something like that. But basically by context, you're saying which file that is an ES do you want to submit to the workflow? Is it the current working file, or was it maybe the original file that was sent to ES before it was transformed? And then you also have the target, which says what is going to become of the file after I submit it. So a basket function would show up in the basket in the bottom left of ES. Source object basically would replace the file that's in the workflow with the new file. So if you want to do a file transformation, or if you're trimming the file or something like that through a Twist workflow, you could do that and then come in as the current file in ES. Or workflow driven, basically the workflow logic would dictate what happens to it. So maybe it gets a digital transfer off somewhere or something like that. So the user actions are going to be extended out and definitely are a nice part of ES 4.5 to extend its value. I don't have any slides on this, but I did want to just mention Ryan Fromm did cover using the API from ES and kind of gave a couple of practical samples of how that could be used. That is something that we're probably going to cover in an upcoming webinar sometime probably this summer. There's enough interest in there that people asking what they could do with the API, what value is it, and I think we're going to put together a nice webinar to show some of those functions. Scott Tully introduced a series he's doing that he kind of publishes out on LinkedIn called 5 Things You Didn't Know You Could Do with Twist, which takes some kind of basic functions that Twist can handle and shows you just very simply how to do those kind of in a little kind of just quick video he puts together, a 5-minute video. And then he also showed some steps on how to organize variables using workflows. Some very technical discussion that he had there. It was kind of nice to see. Then we had Pierre Lataste did a demonstration showing us a few functions of that are new in Twist 7.5. One of them, image action, we've covered in a webinar before, so I kind of left out of here. But I did want to mention the barcode creation now that exists in MergeXP. So in the new versions of MergeXP, you'll notice there's actually a selection down where you would typically select your page URL or color bar, anything like that. There's a selection for barcode now. So you can select barcode, and then you'll see actually a settings button appear on the right-hand side. The settings allow you to set how that barcode can be created. So which type of barcode is it, what the value is. The value, of course, can be overridden by variables, using just your typical getMem type functions. And then just what the color is, any bar width reduction, all of those kind of settings you would see. For those of you who've used barcode functions in Litho, for instance, you may have been used to some of this. It's now available through Twist with MergeXP. So You'll see there's a list of, I think there's got to be like 30 different barcodes that can be created through here. So pull down list is quite extensive. It covers most barcodes anybody would want to use except for one of our customers. And this was just kind of a quick list of a few of the ones I threw together. I got a little bit tired. I didn't want to put a bunch of pages and bore you all too much by putting too many, but this was just an example of some of the barcodes it could create. So ES45 was then covered, and I think Frederick showed some of this, as well as Christoph Romer in different sessions. One of the things he covered was some of the new features in the HTML5 viewer, such as proofreading marks, layer support, and rotation. And I think I'll go ahead and jump out and show you all that right now. So most of you on the line should be familiar with the HTML5 soft proofing now that exists inside of ES45. Again, that's accessible via your profile. You're either using the Java version or you're using the HTML5 version. And what you'll see now, we have a file here. Under the annotations, there's a pull down now. So if you pull down, you'll see proofreading marks. So this is a library of proofreading marks you can have and use to repurpose. So say maybe that's a color correction mark or something like that. They each have, depending on how you create them, what they are. So these are just kind of the little library that comes with ES. So that's one of those features that exist inside of the Java version that they've now brought into the HTML5 version, and they're going to keep doing that where they're bringing more and more of the features in to have eventually, hopefully, a feature match between the two different viewers. Again, we're just kind of creating those. You can do it sticky, where you can just create them on the fly. And of course, any of those have annotations associated with them. You can type in the annotations if you want to put notes about what exactly you want with that correction. So that's a nice feature. Another new nice feature is going to be the layer support. So if you notice, it handles PDF layers and Photoshop layers as well. And here's just a very simple layered file I created where basically I can turn off the text layer. I can turn off the image layer, view those, and I don't think there's anything specifically on the background master layer. But so I can now turn those off. Again, that's a soft proofing function. I'm not modifying the file or changing which layers are on and off. So if I'm doing any kind of thing like language translation or anything like that, I can use my layer functions in ES to specifically annotate the layer I need to work on, whether it's the Spanish or the French or the English version possibly of a file, and annotate exactly what I need to. And then the last thing he showed was the rotation feature. So we now have rotation inside of ES. It rotates very quickly on the fly, and I can actually do it even 4% or whatever the percentage is, and I think there was actually a quick key he was using as well to do this, which was quite annoying. You can also do mirroring horizontally or vertically. So again, nice features that the product has been missing. We have a lot of packaging customers who need a lot of rotation and the mirroring type functions, and we're able to do that now inside of here. Get that back right. Christoph Romer did a nice presentation that shows some of the integrations they're now starting to do inside of ES. So not only is ES extending itself out as a product and getting more and more features inside of it, getting asset management type functions and things like that, but now they're going to start working with third-party software and basically extending the value of ES and how it works with other products that our customers use in the market. One of those he showed was with IDS. For those of you who aren't familiar with IDS, they're a company that's been very successful in the UK market. They haven't really broached into the US market yet, but we're working with them and trying to get that going here in the US. What IDS is basically an image aggregator. So they go out and they get the images from all the different services like Getty Images or AP, things like that, and make those searchable through one engine, through their engine. So you can go and do a search for Princess Charlotte and find every image that all the different services have, choose the images you want from those, then you use your commercial relationship with those image providers to pay the copyright fees for the image if you're going to use it. You also obviously have some that have free images, things like that. The nice thing with IDS is they extend even beyond that. So that's kind of simplistically being used by somebody to find images in that. They can actually be used by the brands to actually see who's using their images on the market. So they have an incredible engine that will actually allow you to index image that you might have put on their service. And it will go out based on websites and other image sites and basically find uses of the image based on looking at the pixels inside of the image itself. So it can even find if somebody cropped out Prince William's face in the background of this picture here and used it on a cover somewhere, just mixed into a montage, it could find the use of that image. So really great product, and DALiM has taken that because they did speak at Euroduo as well, and have integrated it into what will eventually be something available on ES5. So their goal is basically to use the IDS API to search assets, display those assets in ES, then go ahead and collect them into a basket, download the assets into ES, and then basically you have an image inside of ES that's being tracked by ES for future use. So the way they're going to do it is actually by allowing you to use a plugin from that DALiM's created that uses the API for IDS. So if you notice, basically in the search area, it'll actually have a new tab. So you'll have an ES tab to search all your files inside of ES that you're used to doing now, and then search IDS as well. So in this case, they're doing a search like for Scarlett Johansson celebrity. And it would come back with all the different hits on Scarlett Johansson on their system. They have basically about 100 million images indexed currently, and those are being added. Then basically if you find the image you want, you can drag it into your basket or clipboard as they're showing here. From there, you could launch soft proofing on it. So it's an image downloaded to your ES that you can soft proof, annotate, do whatever you need to on it. And then maybe select the image. And actually this is just a quick video that Christoph provided to me that kind of shows the function work. And so you're doing a search on Adriana Lima. Select it. You have all the metadata associated with the file showing in the tab right inside of ES. All of this is all coming from IDS. Drag it into the basket. Viewing it inside of the dialog viewer. And he's actually going to take it and add it to his project, and it'll be processed as a normal file inside of ES. The point he added it to the basket, it basically became a file inside of ES as if you had grabbed it from another project inside of ES or from your file system in ES. So just a nice way to extend ES functionality out. Again, availability on this is going to be in ES5, which should be beta by December. The Worldwide Technology Meeting, they'll probably be doing the official announcement of ES5 itself. And again, it's installable via plugin in ES. So we'll have the plugin functionalities. Another integration that Christoph showed was integration with Chili Publisher. So basically, Chili Publisher is an online document editor. I think a lot of you who are on the call have probably seen demos of it. They actually did a demo during Duo as IDS did as well. To kind of fit in nicely into what Christoph was showing. But it's a very powerful document editor that are used by a lot of coupon companies or brands to put out their merchandise where it can be edited on the back end before a final coupon is put out or something like that by pizza companies or whatever you could think of. Has a lot of different purposes. Very powerful application. But they did an integration with this as well that they're showing. So basically what they want to be able to accomplish inside of ES is to browse the Chili file system, to get previews of the Chili files shown in ES, use the Chili files in ES projects as if it's just a regular file inside of ES, edit the file directly from Chili inside of ES, apply those changes, and then create a PDF basically that continues inside of the workflow. The whole time obviously using ES's power of doing validation cycles and approval cycles. So basically the way this is going to work is to install a plugin on the Chili server. So the plugin is basically, I would imagine this is going to be similar to just the JDF plugin, the file input plugin that we currently install, like say on a file server, so that we can browse its file system and monitor it. You'll register that file, that device as a device inside of ES, and then create a volume, just as you would, again, any file server out there. You're creating a volume from the Chili file system. Then that's going to give another tab inside of the file system setup where you can set up your credentials to log on to the Chili server. It's going to modify the preview generation so it knows when it sees a Chili file that it's going to use a Chili API to generate the preview for it. It'll encompass a couple of new tools inside of ES, one being Chili Copy, and I think you got the previews backwards on this, one being Chili to PDF. So basically, Chili Copy just creates a new instance of a Chili document, and Chili to PDF converts a Chili document to a PDF file for publishing. So here's maybe at the end of your workflow after you've gone through approval on the Chili file, you approve it and create the PDF of it to continue your workflow and do your digital delivery on it. There's a UI plugin that's going to be installed, which basically is just a call to the Chili API, basically like what they did with the IDS integration. But it'll also allow you from within ES itself to launch the Chili editor, so you can select a Chili file inside of ES, launch the Chili editor, make your edits on it, so you're changing your text, you're changing the images, whatever is allowed to do at that level, make those changes, and then create your PDF. So that was kind of some of the integration stuff they showed, which one of the things I really thought was great is that they are extending the product out instead of trying to build everything themselves and using partners that already have powerful products to extend the ES out. Then on the last day, Jacques did a presentation, and one of the things he showed the CMIS API, which those of you who've seen my webinar from December from the Worldwide Technology Meeting, I covered that already, so I kind of wanted to leave that out of this one. If you're interested in some information on that, just contact me. I'll be happy to go over it with you. But he showed something he didn't show then that I found quite interesting and is useful actually today. The CMIS API that they're going to have isn't going to be available to ES5. But what I'm going to talk about right now is actually available in the current builds of ES4.5. And what it basically is a way to use SQL queries with a standard JDBC driver to get information out of ES's database. So we now have a way to use standard SQL queries, query the ES database, and use that information however you want. So if you're using Crystal Reports or something like that, you can use that information for it. In fact, he actually mentions a couple of reporting engines, Crystal Report, Pentaho, and JasperSoft, that could basically use the JDBC driver and query ES and make nice reports. There's also an ODBC JDBC driver that exists for those that don't use JDBC. So that looks like it gives you access from a SQL standpoint to these different tables, the customer table, the job table, the folder table, document table, and the log as well. So any of those can be used with standard SQL queries to get the information you need out of ES and repurpose that. So any place like for a job document or folder, you're able to also access the metadata that's associated with those. We haven't played with that much yet. We've kind of played with it at a very high level so far, but we're going to get into that because that eventually will allow us to do things. We've had requests from customers before where they're requesting things like they want to know how much disk space a specific project has taken up or a customer has taken up because maybe they kind of have a SaaS type instance of ES out there where a lot of different customers are using, and they want to charge customers for disk space. This kind of thing should hopefully allow for that kind of information out of the database. You're able to do joins and stuff, so once you understand where information is based on some simple queries, you can make them much more complex. It's going to support select, from, where, group by, order by, limit, and offset. So all your basic SQL syntax that you're used to, some at the basic level. Different operators are supported, and aggregation functions. So being able to do sum, max, min, count, or average of things you can do as well. So if you need to find out the average file size, for instance, you could do things like that. Date functions supported, so being able to look at files that are more current than a certain date, stuff like that you can do. And here's just some samples that Jacques actually put together in different tools. So here's a chart he did of logged in users by date, a pie chart showing basically different file formats that are in the system. So he did a quick query to allow him to do that. We've kind of had Brennan help me out a little bit since I'm not great at coding, and he kind of just threw something together real quickly before the meeting where he was able to just quickly use the information and do some quick queries. So select everything from the schema tables here. Just do a quick select from job, for instance, and there's all the information that can be returned from there. So a lot of information to look at, but just quickly and basically just using some simple SQL queries once you got his JDBC driver set up in here to basically just do these quick requests. So very nice being able to kind of look at that, and it's really going to give us some power to really extend out. Our understanding from what Jacques has told me, basically this is just an extension of the current API. So if you have the API license, you have access to this. Again, so basically there will be 2 APIs available for ES. So you're going to have the standard API that's available today, and the SQL will be a part of it. And then coming in ES5, you'll have the CMIS integration that's going to allow more access to things at a file level and be able to do things at a file level, like copying files, getting files out of the system, things like that. All that will be accessible. One thing I wanted to cover real quick as well that they discussed is DALiM's worked over the past few months to basically get their documentation for the API functions more available and easier to update. Before, they've always created in a PDF, hard to track which version of the PDF is the current one. So they actually created an API documentation site. You do need login for this, but you can basically go into the main page and request credentials. They'll pass you credentials and you'll get into it. And this is basically going to be a living document that they keep up with it. So for the SQL type functions, if I go to production, execute SQL, here's all the documentation they have on that and what's available to use with it. And basically this is information that Brendan used to put together that quick web page for me that I could just click through and do a few samples of. So all the information's there. You need to actually use this stuff and go through it. They also have an API console that basically will allow you to test this against their ES server. So if you build some code or you want to test some of the API functions, you can test this against DALiM's ES server straight through here. So it's a quick way to kind of see what the power of it is, what you can do with it if you understand the documentation and the API usage. And that's all I have today on the presentation. I'll actually see what questions we actually have. If I can get this aside, let me, don't want to do that, just wanted to get rid of that real quick. And go over a couple of questions with you. A quick reminder, if you could, you can go to our webpage at blanchardsystems.com/events and view the upcoming webinars. We do some sales webinars as well to show some new product introductions, as well as semi-ad and virtual publisher webinars that we do monthly as well. So some of the questions I had, one is how can I join Duo? A couple of new customers are on basically Duo by purchasing the product, the Duo membership, the Duo president and vice president to get your information. They should be contacting you about participating in Duo and send you all the information on the next Duo, which will be sometime in the spring next year. Typically it's March, April timeframe. And based on the vote this year, I'm not sure if they could be coming back to New Orleans next year. There was, I think, a few people who wanted to go to Las Vegas, although a lot of times that's difficult for some people. San Francisco got some votes as well. So typically during the they'll have calls all year long to discuss the event coming up, and they'll basically do a vote from everybody and decide where that event should take place the following year. We have in the last few years followed kind of a 2-year cycle where we keep it in one place for 2 years and then move it on, just because logistically sometimes it's a bit cheaper to do that since you're dealing with the same infrastructure. Another question I had is the API licensed? I think I covered that a little bit, but basically the API is a license function, and the SQL and regular ES API are all the same thing. So as if you have the API license already, you can use it. If not, you can contact your salesperson, and they'll be happy to discuss the pricing of the API with you. Is the barcode licensed? Again, the barcode function, from my understanding, I believe it is part of Merge XP. So as long as you have the Merge XP tool licensed, then you should have access to the barcode. If you need barcode, then you need Merge XP. That's my understanding of it now. If that changes, I'll actually clear that up and correct that with everybody. I'll send an email out to everybody that's been on if that's actually different. Then the last question I had was, can I have different proofing marks for different customers, I think is what they meant here. And basically, yes. In the structure of, basically, your proofing marks you can create, there's actually a documentation on it that shows you the XML structure you create to create the proofing marks. Same ones are used for Java that are used for HTML5. And basically, by identifying them a certain way and building them where you put the customer as part of the tag inside of the XML file, it will only allow those customers to use that depending on how your hierarchy is set up in ES. So the question is, yes, you can have specific proofing marks for specific customers. And I think that's all the questions I had. Anybody has any more questions, or you want to talk to me about anything that we talked about today, be happy to email me. You can email text@blanchard.com. We're always happy to answer any questions, or you can just call me at the office and I'll be happy to talk to you. So on that, we'll go ahead and end the webinar, and hope to see everybody again next month on this, and hope everybody has a great day.